Today's video is sponsored by Heart of the Tribe Gallery, where art meets community. More about that later.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel for what will be a slightly different video today. I'm here with Kieron in the wonderful St John's the Baptist Church in Glastonbury High Street to talk about the life of being a curate. You probably know what a curate is, or you may not, but do you know what they actually do? I don't. This guy does, so we're going to ask him. Hello Kieron, how are you?
Hello, nice to be with you.
Thank you for coming along and talking to us today. This church is absolutely beautiful, isn't it? It's an absolutely stunning place to come, and I like the way I've been around here with David, and they've taken the pews out. What are your thoughts on pews?
I think pews are wonderful. I think they're lovely. There are some places that have really wonderful historic pews that need to be preserved. However, we are vastly moving in a world where the church building is much bigger and much larger than the worshipping community that uses it. And so our buildings need to work for us and not us for our buildings. And so sadly, the time has come to think about whether or not the pews, fixed as they are have any more life in us. So I think
traditionally churches would have been standing room and straw on the floor. You wouldn't have had pews. Pews were a later invention.
Pews are a later invention as people get more comfortable in wanting to sit down in church. And they fix them in place, which then means that you give up the vast majority of your building to seating, which hugely limits what you can do with it. So to be able to take them out and have movable chairs or movable benches means that this place can go from being a worshipping community space 1 minute to being a market space the next minute to being a stage the next minute, which allows the building to come right back into the heart of the community rather than just being used for one purpose. As much as that still remains our absolute central and most important purpose, it is one amongst many.
I'm a huge fan. We will come back to that later on. I wanted to ask you, what made you take up the ministry in the first place? I mean, did you wake up one morning and think, you know what, I want to be a vicar one day?
Yeah, I guess there's kind of long and short answers to that one, really. I was brought up in the church. Brought up Roman Catholic in a kind of Irish family. My grandparents were very religious, and I went to church a great deal. And church made a lot of sense to me. Sometimes life was a bit hectic and not always great. So church was a place where people talked about loving each other, being good to each other, and that in those times was really helpful. And from a young age, I said I wanted to be a priest. I was just drawn to it. I don't know if it's the flair for the dramatic, drawn to the some of the outfits and some of the costume, but actually there's some great we're going to look at them. There's some great clobber, but I think it was always this sense of this is what I should be doing. And even when I tried out different things, I was never quite content, and it kept coming back going, this is what you should be doing. And so eventually I stopped ignoring that feeling and just said, okay, let's give it a go and see what happens. And I said yes to that call. And I thought, well, eventually I'll get to the point of a selection interview and they'll go, absolutely not. And it just didn't happen. I never got given a no. I kept giving a yes. And I thought, okay, well, I'll move on to the next stage. And maybe that will be the end of the road. And I just kept saying, hey, if you want me, God, then cool. Here I am.
Absolutely. I'm not a football fan, and I don't like football, and I'd rather chew my arm off than watch a match. But to use a football analogy, you came up in the Roman Catholic Church, and now here you are in the Church of England. That's like a Liverpool player transferring to Everton somewhat, or a Celtic going to a Rangers. I mean, what went on there?
Yes, a number of reasons, really. And I guess I probably should caveat this with that I still have so much love for the Roman Catholic Church, and my particular view of the church is that the Church of England professes itself to be part of the Catholic and Apostolic Church. And so in that sense, I would see myself as still being brothers and sisters with my Roman Catholic
Still the same
friends.
Isn't it?
Yeah. But there were some differences in opinion around, I think, the place of women in ministry, which for me was a huge thing. I wasn't prepared to be in a place where women couldn't minister, and that's me. And so being in the Church of England, where I'm able to minister alongside some amazing women priests, is a great joy, and I'm really pleased to be able to be a part of a church that recognizes that. I think some of the more doctrinal structures of the Roman Catholic Church can be quite rigid, can be quite unmoving. And the more and more I grew in my knowledge of theology and of myself, the more I thought, oh, I'm not sure I fit this particular framework. And the Church of England has lots of problems, lots of troubles, but what it does have is a very broad tent under which many different people shelter. And so it allows me to understand theology in from my perspective and live and breathe that in the way that I feel matches my relationship with God and with my social feelings and my moral compass, really.
And I guess you don't have to sign up for a life of celibacy either.
There is that.
No. That's a lot of people consider that.
That is a huge thing, and I think celibacy is a wonderful gift, but it is a gift that few possess, and in my view it should be something chosen, not something mandated.
The Catholic Church, like you say, is more rigid, it's more shall we say, more dogma driven. So you come from a high church background. Do you say that because you come from a church Catholic background, or because you were involved in the high church within the Church of England?
So, because I come from a Roman Catholic background, I would say what the Roman Catholic Church has, which we might call high church in the Church of England, is that the Roman Catholic Church is sacramental. It's very liturgical. It has lots of rituals. It has a very clear sense of its tradition and what that looks like. And so for me, coming out of that experience, finding my place in the Church of England, I was always going to lean towards a more sacramental, more liturgical expression of the Church of England, which the Church of England would describe as high church.
You talked about earlier on about the how the church is used in the community. How do you see the church in Glastonbury in particular and in general developing over the next 5-10 years with its role within the community? Because obviously it's important, if it's going to survive with dwindling parishioner numbers, that it actually does engage in the community, and it's something I'm really, really keen on seeing happen, and I know you are. So, I mean, do you think that we're going to see more changes within the church as we go forwards, or is that not the case?
Well, I think that's always difficult to say what the future will be. I think at the moment the churches here are doing a really wonderful job at reaching out and being part of the community, and I think the community are feeling welcomed in, and I think that's a really strong place to be. Of course, there will be in the future a new vicar of Glastonbury, and so I don't want to preempt in any way what they might be getting up to. But my hope would be that the churches in Glastonbury would continue to be places of welcome, of openness, of discussion, of meeting, where everyone feels, regardless of their particular religious or spiritual flavour, that they could come to this place and find a safe welcome. Even if it's not a place that they wish to worship on a regular basis. And of course, I'd love to see more people wanting to come and discover who Jesus is in this place and maybe join in some of what's going on here, because that's always wonderful to have people go on that journey with us.
Absolutely. If you see me sort of doing all this down here, it's because Ezekiel's down here. We're going to meet Ezekiel later. He's the star of the show, but he's sat over there looking absolutely gorgeous as we speak. So, what will you just talked about David leaving, what will be your role after he's gone?
Well, in essence, my role doesn't change. So I'm still the assistant curate, which is kind of like the apprentice to the vicar. And in the absence of the vicar, the area dean, who is currently the rector of Street, oversees this deanery, this area of Somerset's churches. So we've got a small number of us. So she is the next tier up, and so she will take on the legal responsibility for the parish alongside the church wardens of the 3 individual parishes that we look after. Yeah. So I do not step into David's role at all. I don't hold any of his legal authority.
Take a few more services, though.
What my role is, along with Pamela, our other priest, it will be to keep the show on the road in terms of the service provision, in terms of pastoral care, in terms of those day-to-day things that just need to happen for our life here to continue. And so there'll be a bit more of that on my plate than there was before.
So we'll get to see more of you. That's a good thing.
Yeah, and helping to support the church wardens and the PCCs in discerning what they want from a new vicar and what is the direction. So to your question about where do you think this place is going to be in 5-10 years, well, that's actually what the PCCs are going to be discussing in the coming months, is going to be who are we going to be, what are we about, and where do we want to go, and who is the kind of person we need to help us
And this can
get
take
there.
a year, can't it?
This can take a year. It takes a long time, because that's not a quick question. That's a really big question for a parish to ask itself. And David's been here for such a long time and has given so much and has helped shape so much of what this place is about.
He's going to leave a hole.
He's going to leave a huge hole, and the parish is going to need time to really sit down and go, okay, what next? And that's going to be a whole journey to go on. And my hope is that our schools and members of the civic body and others are going to be able to feed in some of their thoughts about what do we want from the Vicar of Glastonbury, because as we're saying about community connections and what is this place to the community, it is not just for, it's primarily for us, the PCC and the church of the area to decide, but actually it's bigger than that, because the Vicar of Glastonbury is much bigger than just one church, but is actually there for the people of Glastonbury and Mere. And so those people will hopefully also get their chance to say, well, this is what we think is important.
I mean, if it was me deciding and it's not, probably that's a good thing. But if it was me deciding, my main concern would be somebody who brings a sense of community and engagement with the community, because I think that is essential for not just this church, but all churches. So often you go into a town and there's the church, just a locked building. What's it doing? It should be open. There should be people in there. There should be meetings. There should be engagement. And that's what I like about St John's Church. You come past here and there'll be a meeting in here, or there'll be something going on, and there'll be people sitting out on the grass.
Yeah.
It's nice, it's community, and it's central to the people who live here.
And the mission statement is very much that we are a Christian spiritual centre in the heart of town for everybody. Absolutely. And that has been our mission statement for a very long time, and I don't see that changing.
So I wouldn't want to see that change.
And I think that will be a very valuable part of who we are into the future. And my deep wish and hope is that the parish will find that person.
So, big question time. What's your favourite part of the job? What do you like best about your job?
That's a very, very big question.
I did send these questions yesterday.
Yeah. It's often said that to be a priest is to journey with people at the very edge of human experience. And what I mean by that rather kind of lofty phrase is that in my job and in ministry, whether you're a priest or you're a lay minister or whatever, however you, so often you are there for the deep highs, the great moments of rejoicing, of the birth of a child, the marriage, the celebration. And you're also there at the most devastatingly tragic moments of funerals, of death, of illness, of hurt and sin and betrayal and all these things that happen that people come to us with. And for me, that is both the most grace-filled and powerful place, but it's also a very devastating place to be. And it's such a rich and holy ground to step on. So for me, is it my favourite thing? I'm not sure if favourite's the right word. I think for me, it is the most privileged part of what I do, to dwell with people there and to be invited into those deep moments. Into their lives. And them look at me and go, we need your help.
Because sometimes you're just holding their hand on the journey, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's their journey. I can't walk it for them. No. But I can, like Jesus does on the road to Emmaus, he doesn't walk the journey for them. He walks alongside them and explains and helps and guides and breaks bread and heals and lays hands. This is the calling of the clergy. The calling of the priests are to proclaim the word of God and to administer the sacraments. So
one of my favourite books is The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. And when he's asked by the people of the town different questions, and the book is basically his answers. And he's asked about children, and I know it's not quite relevant, but his answer was, children are like the arrow in a bow. You can draw back the bow and you can point it and you can guide it, but once you let go, they're on their own. And I suppose it's a bit like that, because people are on their own through these journeys, and you're kind of there to kind of guide them and kind of let them off in the right direction.
I think a really good example of this might be the parable of the Good Samaritan, which many people will be familiar with, and the poor guy is by the side of the road, beaten, bruised, and robbed, and everyone walks by. You know, the chief priests walk by, and you know, all these civic dignitaries, all these people who are supposed to be these great people walk by, and it, you know, it is the Samaritan, the supposedly other person, the outsider, who comes and who helps. And once he's helped and healed this person, he then takes him to an inn, says, "Here's a few coin, look after him. I got to go," because actually we cannot walk that journey for that person. What we can do is help them in that moment of crisis, help them in that moment, guide them, be with them. But then we've got to carry on and get on with our journey and other people. But then what happens next? Well, the Samaritan comes back a few months later, pops his head in, checks up. How's it going?
You're right, yeah.
Checks in again. He's going to come back through. And he says to the landlord, any debts, anything left over that needs paying when I come back through, don't you worry, I'll settle up with you when I come back. So he comes back to check up the situation. And if there's anything that still needs covering, covers it, and then cracks back on. And I think there's a certain aspect of that which is the calling for all people, but especially for the clergy, to be those people that journey on. They're walking their own journey, but when they see somebody who needs that uplift, that help, they divert from their journey to help that person. But it is that person's journey to walk.
I saw a fascinating post a couple of days ago, and I was coming here and I thought, must remember that. It was a story of a church in America, and much like here, they were having a new priest come to take over. And this guy decided that he was going to dress as a bum.
Yes, I heard this story, yeah.
And just to see how he was treated, and he wasn't treated well.
No.
And he wasn't made welcome, he wasn't allowed to take the sacrament. They were just treated him really badly. And then about 3/4 of the way through the service, he stood up and announced who he was. I would love to have been there when that happened. But it does show, I mean, a lot of people, you know, like the Good Samaritan, they do walk by, they don't want to know.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the church's roles is to help in situations where people are walking by.
Absolutely. And I think this is the great this is the great kind of thorn in the side of religion, isn't it? That religion is might be divinely inspired, but is at the end of the day a human endeavor, and humans are far from perfect. And actually that's why I would say human beings need spirituality and religion, because we are so far from it that we require those guiding lights to help us try and do our best to be better. But, you know, I've seen it all the time in my own communities of Christians and in other religious groups, where one thing is said at the celebration gathering in the place of worship, and something very different happens in real life. But actually, that's human beings. And the job of the human being is to, well, in my tradition of Christianity, would be to say, well, recognize that fault in yourself, repent, ask for forgiveness, because that forgiveness will always be given, and then get up, dust yourself off, and try again. And the wonderful thing about one of the things I get to do is absolve people. I get to profess God's grace and absolution on a person and say, do you know what? Right, you're washed clean. Now, get up, dry the eyes. There's work to do, and here's your next fresh slate to try again and try and be better. And when you fail again, which you will, come on back.
We've got some more slates,
and we'll do it all again.
Absolutely.
And actually, that's also really important for me as a minister, is to remember that I need to do that all the time as well, because I fail every day, and that's one of the great beauties of the journey. But yeah, you do see that happen.
So to turn that question around on its head, what's your least favourite part of what you do? Is there something you're not keen on, or do you enjoy the entire job?
I think I enjoy most of the job. There is, of course, there are pressures to the job. Being a public person is not easy. And I'm only 2 years into this role, and it has been a really stark learning curve to be a public person in town. Some people have very high expectations. And of course, they should have high expectations of people who dare to don a dog collar and walk around and profess to be God's minister. But sometimes people can be very critical and can be very hurtful. But, you know, that's the way it goes. But if I was to say what my least favourite thing is that the job comes with a great deal of kind of legal bureaucracy and administration,
Paperwork.
which is just what needs to be done to keep an institution running. And it is it is what it is. But sometimes there are times when you think, God, imagine all the things I could be doing, all the good things I could be doing, if I didn't have to go through all these legal hoops. But when you're part of an institution that is as old as the church and is intertwined with the state, it gathers stuff. And because of the intertwining with the state, the legalese are not just our own silly laws, but are the laws of the land and have to be obeyed. And so we end up having to jump through some hoops that I know most clergy would agree with me detracts from getting on with what they see as the job.
I know as a YouTuber, if I was asked that question, I love making the films and meeting people and doing this side of it. I hate being stuck in my house until 4 o'clock in the morning editing.
Yeah.
It's a necessary.
But yeah, it's got to be done.
And you can't really hand it over because another editor will completely change the style.
Absolutely. And that's why you've got clergy who are paid to live this life, and it's their responsibility to make sure that the legal stuff is done. It's not to be foisted onto someone else, because actually that's what we're here for. We're here to do that administrative work as well as doing all the other things.
Quick shout out to Jeff, who I work on the channel with. He's currently driving through what's probably tornadoes near Memphis. But he did have a question for you, and it is, what's it like being in a job where you can be uprooted from where you are, your home, your work, and parachuted into another place? I mean, I think with the vicars, like David leaving, that's his choice. With a curate, you kind of have to move around. It's part of the premises, part of the job, isn't it?
It is during curacy, but once you finish your curacy, then you are also free to, do the same thing, which is to choose where you want to be and to apply for jobs that are vacant. But there is, by its very nature, a peripatetic kind of way of life, and you just kind of accept that is the gig.
They don't drop it on you after you get the job.
No, like it's pretty plain and open, and it is what it is. For me, it's quite exciting. I think there's an element of I'm never stagnant. I'm never kind of stuck in one place. I'm always on the move, and I think that's a really fun place to be. But there are moments when you think, I feel I've just got some roots here, and then it's time to go. But then the nature of the job is that the priest is... St. John Paul II described a priest as a person for other people. And so with that comes a certain amount of sacrifice of the self, to say, do you know what? I am not just my own person anymore. I'm a person for God, a person for the church, and a person for other people. And that means that sometimes my life has to be a bit secondary to the ministry that I've been called to. And that's hard.
And that's not everybody's cup of tea. Not everybody can do that, can they?
No. And that's hard as well on the families and friends and loved ones that support us, because their lives are disrupted and it's not their ministry. And so big shout out to the spouses, to the children, to the partners, to the friends of all priests who put up with this and help and support this, because they love the minister, they love the person who's the priest, and they accept that that's part of the gig. And it's a big ask. So whoever, if you're a person who's a really good friend of or in love with a priest, you're a great person, because it's not possible without you.
Well, we're going to go and have a look at the clobber, or the robes and the copes and things, because it's quite fascinating. I've just learned there's different patterns and they have different names, and we're going to find out all about that in a minute. But I think, thank you for telling us about this. We're also going to meet Doggo, who's down on the floor there. So we're going to move now from here to, is that the vestry?
The vestry.
We're going to go to the inner sanctum, ladies and gentlemen. Not many people go there and come out again, but we're going to go in there. So we're just going to move from here to there. Catch you in a minute. To the vestry, and don't spare the horses. So tell us about Ezekiel, or Zeke.
So Zeke's is a lovely lurcher. He's part Afghan, part Whippet.
Yeah.
He's going to be 8 in January, and he comes from Wedmore, so he's a local boy.
Oh, local boy.
And he is a very good boy.
And he's very friendly with me, because I came with doggy treats this morning.
He's been with me all the way through the journey, haven't you, Zeeks? You came to the training college. You should probably have your own dog collar, because you've done the whole thing yourself. So.
Well, yes, he hasn't got a dog collar on, has he?
Yeah, he's running free today.
Notice he follows me like a shadow, because I have the biscuits, don't I? Yes, I do. I've got the biscuits, yes.
Right then, let's have a look at the clobber and then we can move on and I can give him another dog biscuit.
This is my cope, and a cope is kind of like a big cloak. It goes over the top of our main robes, and they're used in non-Eucharistic celebrations. And by
Could
that
you explain that?
So we have the Holy Communion, the bread and wine. That is the Eucharist. It's kind of posh theological name. And for that, we'd wear a chasuble, which is more like a poncho, and I'll show you some of those in a moment. But this is for non-Eucharistic sacramental moments. So weddings, baptisms, you could wear it at a funeral. It comes in all the same colours as our Eucharistic garments. You'd have seen these being worn by the bishops at the coronation and at any other great big state occasion in Westminster Abbey or St Paul's or wherever. You would find that the clergy tend to wear copes if it's not Holy Communion, because it adds a sense of celebration that this is a
special day. We're going
to get the glad rags out.
Yeah.
And the reason I wanted to show you this one, this was made for me in Newcastle by J&M Sewing, who have the royal warrant for making these things. And when I was trying to find the fabric, I came across a fabric swatch called Glastonbury brocade, and I thought that has to be the one.
Yeah.
So this lovely cream fabric, I hope you can see some of the detail of it, is Glastonbury brocade, and it's woven through with the holy thorn and with the Tudor rose. And I just thought I had to have that fabric. It had to be that fabric. And then we have the beautiful blue St Margaret's brocade for the St Margaret's Chapel. But I got it in blue as well because of my love of the Virgin Mary, and of course Our Lady of Glastonbury being the reason why there has been Christian churches here for such a long time. So that's my cope.
That's nice.
In terms of other vestments, so this is this is the stole. The stole you would see priests wear like so, and it is the kind of official garment of office of the priests, and it would have been at one point in kind of the first century Greco-Roman world. It would have been a garment worn by most middle class kind of officiants in that world, kind of civic roles. They might have worn it like this. It might have been used quite helpfully in a warm country to fan oneself or dab oneself, and then eventually they start embroidering them with shields of office, and they become important in civic life. And the church eventually decides that what priests do is so important it requires its own special clothing, and so they adopt the clothing of the civic body of the day, and then we just retain that. So that is always worn, the stole there.
And from this, ladies and gentlemen, was developed the football scarf as we know it today.
This is the chasuble.
Ah, right. Yes, we do see people. They wear these on all ranks, don't they?
Yes. So this is what we wear for Holy Communion, and again, only for the priest upwards, so priests and bishops and such. The chasuble comes from a beautiful word meaning little house, and again, it would have been your outdoor garment. So you'd have put it on over the top in a dusty, arid place to keep the dust and the muck away from your nice linen garment that you may have only had one or two of and you want to keep clean.
So, like football garb, these come in different colours, don't they? And they mean various different things for times of the year and things.
Yep.
So green is?
So green is the current period of time, which is Trinity season, or sometimes called ordinary time, and it covers most of the year from post Easter onwards, the kind of summertime of the church, where we've gone through Advent and Christmas and Lent and Easter and Pentecost, and now we're in ordinary time. So we get this wonderful green, which gives us lovely symbols of resurrection, new life, abundance, because we've come through the whole story and are now just living as the church in the abundance and salvation of God. It also comes in red.
Ooh, that's a nice colour.
Yeah, so red has we don't see red very often, and the red comes out for feasts of martyrs, so those who have been murdered for their faith, and so the red is a symbol of blood, for the blood of the martyrs. It also is used at Pentecost, which is when the Holy Spirit comes upon the apostles in fire. So the red is also supposed to symbolize flame and fire and the Holy Spirit. And we use it also for all of the 12 apostles on their feast days, because almost all of them were martyred, but they're also the ones who've received the Holy Spirit in fire. So fire and blood, martyrs and apostles, you get you get red.
Oh, purple.
Purple.
Nice. I like purple. It's my favourite colour.
Purple is for the church a penitential colour. It's a colour that we use when we are thinking about where we could do better, where we need to repent. And so it comes out in Advent and it comes out in Lent. It's also a colour of preparation, because in Advent and Lent we're getting ready. We're preparing for Christmas and Easter to come. With Advent, you've got those 4 weeks before, and then you've got Lent, 40 days before Easter. And so it's that time of preparation, it's that time of getting ready, but also that time of where do I need to take a bit of stock of my life and say, what have I done good? What have I done bad? Could I be better? And Advent and Lent is the traditional times in the church year when we really focus in on that kind of narrative. And then we have white or gold, and these are for the big celebrations. The big celebrations, of course, being Christmas and Easter. Particular saint days would be in white or gold. So this church is dedicated to St. John the Baptist. And a few weeks ago, it was the feast of the birth of John the Baptist. And so for us, that is our patronal feast day. So that is a white and gold copes and smoke and bells and everything you can imagine thrown at it. So this is our kind of celebratory colour. So those are our 4 main colours. And we also use black we don't see it very often, but for funerals, if people want it, but not very often. But those are our 4 big colours of the church.
And these will be worn by the vicar?
These will be worn by the priest who is officiating the service.
So you're going to get to wear these a lot more next year?
Well, I already wear them quite a lot now, because we take it in turns to do different things. So I wear them quite frequently. But the priest who is the president of the service, who's taking the Eucharist, the one behind the altar doing all the words, will wear the chasuble. The rest of us will be in our white albs, which this is an alb. It's just a white garment that covers over everything, and it is a symbol of the purity of our baptism. And then we wear one of the stoles, the scarf-like garments in the same colour over the top, because we're all priests, but the priest with the chasuble is the one taking the service, to whom we all pay that respect.
One last question about clobber. How many grades above your pay grade do you have to be to wear a mitre or a hat?
So clergy can wear hats, and there are a number of different clergy hats. So I have a square hat, which is called a biretta, which is quite a high churchy hat. And that denotes the office of the clergy and their academic prowess. It would have been very common many years ago in the church to see most clergy wearing a mortarboard from a university, because again, it denotes the academic prowess of the clergy. And they would have worn that with gowns as well and wandered around town with mortarboards and gowns. But that is going quite back into the high point of the Victorian period of the Church of England. But to get a pointy hat, a mitre, the bishop's hat, you have to be a bishop, you have to be consecrated. But there are a number of grades that go up. So there's me, the curate. So I'm at the kind of very bottom rung of the list. And then you get your vicars and rectors and those people who have the legal authority over parishes. Then you get your area deans. So so they kind of the area manager, as it were. They kind of look after maybe 5 or 6 benefices of churches in the area. Then you get your archdeacons. Archdeacons work directly for the bishop. They don't run parishes, and they are kind of your regional managers. So in this diocese of Bath and Wells, the diocese is divided into 3 archdeaconries: the Archdeaconry of Wells, Archdeaconry of Taunton, and the Archdeaconry of Bath. So we are, shock horror, in the Wells Archdeaconry, and we have the Archdeacon of Wells, and that person sits above us and is there to ensure that all things are done properly and correctly, and he's our boss's boss, as it were. And then above archdeacons, you then get bishops after archdeacons. But there are a number of other little roles as well, like cathedral dean and cathedral canons, which are senior clergy, and some of the bishop's staff who are senior clergy. But in terms of direct rank of authority over us here in the parish, archdeacons, and then you get your bishops, and then you get your 2 archbishops. And all of England is divided into 2 provinces, Canterbury and York, south and north. And so that's how it works.
So, I mean, obviously not everybody wants to be a bishop, do they? I mean,
No.
You're much more detached from people as a bishop, I guess.
I think the bishop gets to see a lot of people. And the bishop is there to be a symbol of unity for the diocese. Personally, I think it's a really challenging job, and I'm not sure I would wish the job on anybody, because it's a lot to be, the bishop of a diocese, to be the center of unity, to be the, inheritors of the apostles. That's a big thing. I think it's a very challenging job. And
you want it?
No. God, no. I don't want the stick and the hat that badly enough. I'm sure there's huge grace in it, and our Bishop Michael is wonderful, and very good at what he does. But I think it's a lot. We talk about that public nature of the role. Well, that gets magnified by 1,000 if you're the bishop. And yes, you don't run a parish, but you do spend your time going around all the different parishes. So you see a lot of people, but making those connections like we do here in Glastonbury, knowing people really well, seeing people on a daily basis, that probably doesn't happen as much for a bishop, because they're all over the place. And then bishops will have a national portfolio to look after for the diocese, for the Church of England. So they'll have another role on top of that, and they may be members of the House of Lords and need to be doing that, and they're on General Synod, and they've got so much to do.
So one last question. I mean, you talked about the roles, and you wouldn't fancy the role of bishop. Where do you see yourself as you approach retirement age?
Retirement age?
What role would you like to have achieved by then?
That's a long way away.
But what I'm trying to get at is, where do you see your journey in the church taking you? Have you got a plan, or are you just going to let it develop? I mean, you say you don't want to be a bishop, so there's obviously things you don't want to do. Are there things you do want to do?
I think there's a lot that I would be happy to throw my hand at. At the moment, for this moment in time, I'm really excited that my curacy is coming to its end soon, so I'll soon be looking for the next step. And I'm really looking forward to, working with a parish in a different way, in a different place. What the future holds, well, for me, it's not that I don't have a plan, but that all things are in God's hands.
So when your curacy ends, you become a vicar?
Well, no, not necessarily. That depends what jobs are available.
I see. But you would be at a vicar level after?
I would be at incumbent level.
Incumbent,
Yeah, because all vicars are priests, but not all priests are vicars.
Not all equal, are
they? No, some people are chaplains, some people are rectors, some people are associate priests. There's a number of different roles. So sometimes it's easier to say that, yes, I will be, once I'm signed off, I'm cleared for incumbency level ministry. That might be as a vicar somewhere. It might be as a rector, or it might be doing something else.
Well, I just want to say thank you to the wonderful Kieron for taking the time. Where's Zeke's down here? Hello, Zeke's. How you doing? I had specifically asked for Zeke to come because he's such a beautiful boy, aren't you? But thank you so much for coming in and meeting with me today and just explaining the role, because, I mean, I didn't know anything about this. I'm sure other people are perfectly clueless. Unless they're churchgoers, you wouldn't know all the things.
It's a whole other world.
And Zeke's is getting bored. So we'll finish it there. But thank you very much. And you can go home now. Thank you. And goodbye. The Heart of the Tribe Gallery is a community art gallery situated near the top of Glastonbury High Street. They host amazing exhibitions supporting local artists, and they have a beautiful secret garden out the back. So be sure to check them out and support local art.